Hi everybody and welcome back to Lost Genre Reddit Stories. This post is from the subreddit True of My Chest and it's by user Betrayed by Wifen. My wife tried to hide my daughter from me. Am I in the wrong to feel this angry? My wife and I are married together and have 3 kids, 11, 8 and 3. When I was in my 20s, I donated sperm as there is a massive shortage in my country. I literally donated after reading about this shortage in the newspaper. I've always been upfront about this fact with my wife. Always. And she has always said she's okay with it. Fast forward to yesterday. I answered the phone to a girl that immediately starts nervously apologizing for calling me, but that she had to speak to me personally. Obviously, I had no idea what the F is going on, so I asked her to explain what she's talking about. Turns out, this girl is my daughter. I understand it's wrong to call her my daughter when I didn't raise her, but for lack of a better word. And just turned 18. After turning 18, she got access to my contact details as required under my country's law regarding sperm donors. She called my house last week to talk to me and my wife picked up. Apparently, my wife told her that I wanted nothing to do with her and that she should never call this number again before hanging up. Honestly, it broke my heart to hear that the woman I loved could be so effing heartless. So, for the last week, this poor girl has been crying her eyes out, trying to work up the courage to call again, and thankfully she did so when I was home. I tried to keep my calm while on the phone and reassure her that I did not say any of that. We organized a place and time to meet, and as soon as my wife got home later that night, I blew up at her. Honestly, I've never yelled at anyone as long as I can remember, but I couldn't hold it in. Am I wrong to think that's so severely effed up of my wife to do? I honestly can't comprehend how she could say that. I'm not thinking straight and need some advice on how to deal with this. Well, OP, in my opinion, no, I don't think it's wrong that you're angry. Maybe screaming to her about it would not have been the way I would have gone about it, but then again, I'm not in your situation. But if I was, instead of raging about it, I would have sat her down and asked her, why did she do what she did? Now, again, I don't think what she did is right. She should have told you about it and told her to call some other time or something like that. But just to play devil's advocate, let's do the following exercise. Imagine you're your wife, you're at home, you've got 3 kids, you've been married for at least 11 years or close to 11 years, and all of a sudden you get a phone call from somebody that you don't know that claims to be your spouse's daughter. That's gotta freak you out somehow, right? I mean, you would at least think it's a scam. Regardless, your wife made the decision to tell her to go away and not tell you about it. And I think this whole thing would have gone absolutely differently if she wouldn't have lied about it and actually told her, like I said before, to call you some other time and then tell you what happened. Also, as a side note, OP, you never mentioned on your post that you had spoken to your wife about what sort of procedure you would take if somebody called you telling you they're your son or daughter. Again, I'm not excusing your wife's actions, but I think that's a conversation you guys should have had. Anyways, what do you guys think about this whole situation? Let me know in the comment section, and now let's move on to the community comments to see what they said. Peacock Shrimp says, I mean, it was wrong of your wife, but I understand how she could be feeling. My husband has a child with another woman is one option. Yes, it's not rational, but that doesn't mean it's not a valid thing to be upset about. You'd sure as hell be upset if it turned out your wife had a kid she'd never told you about, and that kid wanted to be a part of your life. My oldest kid isn't my husband's oldest child. I have no idea how to explain to my kids that they have a sister. What if he likes this kid better than our kids because he never had to change diapers for this one? What if the mother wants to meet him? What does that make me when she's also the mother of his child? And that turns into, I don't want to share my husband's time with another family, and I don't want to play happy families with someone else's kid. What if he wants to spend holidays with her instead of our kids? What if he thinks he needs to make up for lost time and she becomes the focus of his attention instead of the 3-year-old? Does this mean new financial pressure? We're not ready to put an 18-year-old through college. It's understandable that she just wanted to make it go away. As I said, it's not right and you have a right to be angry, but let's not act like your wife wasn't justified in being upset about this. And OP responds, quote, but let's not act like your wife wasn't justified in being upset about this, end quote. I don't think she's justified to be upset and react this way when I've been very open about this since day one. Nervous? Cautious? Sure. Upset? No, not at all justified. I've done nothing wrong. The girl's done nothing wrong. My wife did something extremely immoral and won't even apologize. You're giving her way too much credit. I can't even look at her right now. Misery Me 21 says, probably an unpopular opinion, but you're not her father. This isn't a child you had with another woman or out of wedlock that wants contact with her father. This is a child conceived with your donated sperm. A child you never intended to care for or have a relationship with. Your wife is probably terrified as it affects not just you, but your entire family. She may have gone about it in the wrong way and apparently wrongfully assumed you wouldn't want contact with your sperm donation, but still, I feel for her. Even without ill intentions, having contact with this child will forever change your entire family. Deleted says, I would think your wife feels threatened by the idea of your daughter turning the family dynamic upside down. I can understand her calling for medical information and the like, but you've already set up a date and time to meet. What's next? Honestly, do you expect to just inform her of potential medical issues and that's it? She seemed quite emotional, so I doubt that's all she expects from you. Of course your wife didn't care you were a sperm donor when you first got together. Sperm donor implies that you have no ties to a child, i.e., no baggage, and are simply selflessly gifting life to a couple that otherwise would not know the joys of raising their own child. Yes, she's upset now. Why? Because of the complications that might arise from the girl interjecting herself into your life. What? Now she has to explain to her kids they have a sister, that daddy had other kids he didn't tell him about? She is not your child. She never will be. Her curiosity is understandable, but she has parents. You are not one of them. Your wife should have handled herself differently, passed along the message that this girl is trying to get in touch with you, and spoke of her discomfort with the idea of altering the family. It was inappropriate to say what she did, as she did. But it is pretty clear she does not want this adult woman suddenly becoming part of the family. She didn't sign up for that. It is not like she married you knowing she would be a stepmom. I'm curious to know what you expect to come from this and why it outraged you to the point that you are disgusted by your wife. Additional information from OP's comments. To clarify the donation doubts, most countries have a big shortage of sperm donors as it's illegal to sell sperm in virtually every country outside of the United States. I don't think Americans realize the United States is the exception. In the vast majority of countries, it's illegal to receive compensation for your donations. They only cover travel expenses, so there's little incentive to donate. I live in New Zealand. We have a single fertility clinic in the entire country, and waiting lists are currently 2+ years. You get blood and urine tests for STDs and blood count. Then you do the first sample for sperm count, DNA damage, sperm mobility, and sperm morphology. You also do a genetic screening so that they don't match you with someone that's also at risk for family illness. You then donate up to 15 times, a maximum of twice a week. 6 months after your final donation, you need to retake your STD urine blood tests before they can use your donated samples. Now, when I confronted my wife about what she did, she yelled at me and said it wasn't a big deal. She questioned why I cared when she wasn't my real daughter. I started yelling back and it kept escalating. Then I left the house to walk my dog before I did or said something I'd regret. We haven't spoken since. Honestly, the more I think about this, the angrier I get. I don't think I can ever look at her the same way. The fact she doubled down on it too. I don't think I can get over this. I'm genuinely disgusted by her right now. Honestly, I came here hoping people could calm me down, but honestly, the amount of people painting this narrative of my wife being a victim, wanting to protect me, or just being afraid has only made me angrier about this whole mess. I believe that my marriage is effing worthless if my wife doesn't respect me and I can't trust her, as she has demonstrated. I find it hilarious some of you expect me to be Mr. Empathy and do whatever my wife feels comfortable with, when not only did she not do me the same courtesy, she hid this from me and tried to crush a girl emotionally. At this point, divorce is a certainty unless my wife actually admits she's wrong and gives a genuine apology. I've never been this worked up in my life. If she wants to save this marriage, she can apologize. I'm not gonna effing grovel and comfort her until she admits she's wrong. She's an effing grown woman, not a child. She should realize how effing badly she acted. And finally, because apparently a lot of you have failed to understand my post, this is not about having any kind of relationship with these kids. I have no desire to actively seek out these kids. I've always said, if they reached out, then I'd be willing to meet them at least once. This whole thing is about my wife lying and severely betraying my trust. It's about her thinking she gets to decide for me. It's for me to decide, not my wife, and me not wanting a relationship doesn't mean I don't want to meet her so she can at least know what her biological father is like. Okay, well, the community gave OP their 2 cents and everything they thought about this whole thing, and apparently OP didn't like very much what everybody was saying, or at least what most of people were saying. He's also flirting with the idea of divorce and that his marriage won't last. So now let's go on to the update to see how this story ends, but right now I'm gonna show you this playlist that has a lot of videos with only updates on them. Now let's move on to the update. I was hesitant to post an update after how infuriating some of the replies in the previous thread were, but I figure I owe it to those of you that offered genuine, well-meaning advice. Plus, I've had some time to calm down. I probably won't reply to comments because otherwise I'm just gonna get worked up again by people saying my wife didn't betray my trust, etc. If you're a woman and you're going to say it's understandable what my wife did, then consider how you'd feel if you put a kid up for adoption when you were young, that kid tried to reach out when they turned 18, and your husband told them that you wanted nothing to do with them without ever telling you they tried to reach out. It's not understandable. Anyway, my wife texted me yesterday and said we needed to talk while I was at work. This was the first time either of us had spoken or messaged each other since the fight. I dropped our kids off at my parents' house so we could be alone and went straight home. I'm not sure exactly what I was expecting her to say, but I genuinely hoped she would at least apologize first and foremost, because in my opinion, she severely betrayed my trust by not only denying my agency, but also lying to me about it and then downplaying the entire ordeal. When I get home and we sit down to talk, the first thing she says is that she forbids me from seeing this young woman. Not an apology, an ultimatum that if I went and saw her, she would kick me out of the house, which is laughable considering I owned the house before marrying her. I asked her if she was serious, if she isn't even going to apologize, etc., and she reaffirmed she has nothing to apologize for. Yeah, okay. At this point, I remembered someone's comment in that post about how she might have done this before. I asked her if she has ever done anything like this previously, and she said no. I kept pushing her and she kept saying no. Finally, I told her that I had already called the fertility clinic to reach out to any parents and explain what my wife had done in case they had tried to contact me previously. I actually already know how many kids there are. The clinic updates donors if they opt in, but I'm not sure what has come out of that yet. So I explained to her that if I find out that she has done this before and she doesn't come clean now, I'm divorcing her immediately. She immediately changes tune and says she has only done it one other time. Only. F, that only infuriated me even though it's just a damn word. Anyway, it turns out another girl called a couple of years back after she turned 18 too. Her parents are lesbians, and so she just wanted to meet her biological father since she doesn't have a father of her own, according to my wife, so take it with a grain of salt at this point. I tend to believe what she's saying, as the original girl also has lesbian parents and wanted to meet me for the same reason. She wouldn't say exactly what she said to this young woman, but she did say she made sure she'd stay away from our family. I mean, at least my wife was finally honest with me, but Jesus Christ, what an effing heartless thing to do. I feel like I don't even know my wife. The woman I thought I married had some effing empathy. She still hasn't apologized and goes back to forbidding me from seeing this young woman. I explained that she no longer has a say in the matter. Had she explained her concerns to me like an adult, I would have listened to them and taken them seriously. But by trying to deny me having any choice in the matter and for being needlessly cruel to these girls, she doesn't get a say in this anymore. I told her she has 7 days to give me a genuine apology and agree to marriage counseling, or I would call a divorce lawyer. I also reaffirmed she doesn't get a say in whether I meet with this girl, but I would consider her feelings if any future kids reach out, and she doesn't effing lie about it. A few hours later, she apologized. I say apologized in quotes because it was clearly not genuine, but whatever, it's at least an admission of guilt. So we're going to marriage counseling and try to work through this. To be honest though, I don't think I'll ever see her the same way again, so I have doubts our marriage will last. Well, in my opinion, it's not a happy update. It is somewhat of a positive update in the sense that OP and his wife are going to go to marriage counseling to see if they can work through things, but OP is not so sure about that. So on this note, OP, I'm gonna wish you the very best in the future. Hopefully, you can mend things with your wife for the sake of your kids. Take care, OP. Now, let's finish this video with a mood booster post. This post is from the subreddit Malicious Compliance, and it's by user NoLanguage7256. Unsuitable. Some background. I'm in Australia. I'm currently a 32-year-old male, and this occurred this year. I used to do admin work in defense, and during that time I got rather qualified and experienced, specifically in people management and training people. I then left the uniform for various reasons, including depression caused by my time there. I got a new job and intentionally got a position with below my capabilities so I could focus on my mental health while still working. It was a hotline for a government assistance program. This position was good for about 4 years. Over that time, I started using some of my skills more and built up my confidence again. I was also acting in higher positions almost the entire time. Initiating incident. So after all the COVID lockdowns finally finished, there was a permanent spot in a higher position available. By this time, I was the longest serving person remaining on the team and I was the most qualified. I knew they planned on getting the incumbent to do 2 roles, both of which I knew thoroughly. Went through the interview process, answered all the questions, explained how I could do the role immediately without training, etc. Had to wait a few weeks to find out the results since it's still government and they don't do these things super fast. Then I got told that I was found not suitable. I was floored. I asked for an explanation and all I was told was, "It was a very competitive round." When I asked what I could have done to be more competitive, I got the same answer. To make things worse, they asked me to train the guy who got the role. Immediately, I brought up the duty statement which had the list of tasks for my role. Remember, it's super easy, basically just answering the phone and replying to emails. I also got out the public service level expectations and highlighted the appropriate bits for my level. Cue malicious compliance. Since I wasn't suitable to work at higher levels, I immediately stopped all work that wasn't at my level or in my job description. To say this put a dent into the extra work I was doing would be an understatement. I used to help out management with sorting out interpersonal disputes. I used to run a bunch of reports to find and sort out work that was missed, and I used to help the other teams do their work. So at this point, my days became super easy. I would do about 10% of what I used to, as 10% was my actual job. The training I was doing was directing the guy to the procedures, and if he had questions, directing him to ask a supervisor. It was about a week of this before management noticed the training wasn't very in-depth. One by one, they asked me what was going on. Our structure had 6 supervisors at the time. Each and every time I said the same thing. Unfortunately, I was found unsuitable for the role, so I can't teach someone how to do it. To say they were pissed would also be an understatement, but they tried to stay professional. They then started questioning why I stopped doing all the extra work that I had been doing for years. I directed their attention to my duty statement and asked where it lists that work. They said the extra duties as directed. I then asked how that aligns with the level of expectations, which are surprisingly clear and helpful. At this point, most stopped trying. During all this sudden free time I had, I started to search for a new job. It only took 2 weeks to go for interviews, be found suitable, and get a new job. Apparently, I'm incredibly competitive at this level. Who knew? The fallout. The new job is significantly easier at the level I was unsuitable for and gives me much more money than my other company was offering. Additionally, I have kept in touch with some people there. The management is floundering as interpersonal problems are cropping up. The team can't keep up with the workload, and at least 3 more people have gotten new jobs, with at least 2 looking for other employment, leaving 1 person left in the hotline team that will know what they're doing. It's a shame really, because I really liked that program and probably would have stayed for a long time. Well, OP, unfortunately, they found you unsuitable for that job, but the new company found you very suitable and is willing to pay what you're worth. So good for you, OP, and thank you so much for sharing. And that's it for today's video. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch it. Now, if you've gotten to this point in the video, I assume that you like these stories that I'm reading out, so here are a couple more that you might enjoy. And if you don't have any time to watch another story right now, save it for later, and also, don't forget to hit that subscribe button.